The heart monitor let out a long, high-pitched whine that sliced through the air like a knife. It was the sound every parent fears more than death itself. Inside the VIP suite of the City General Hospital, the room went deadly silent. Dr. Aris, the chief of pediatric surgery, slowly lowered his hands. He looked at the clock on the wall, his face pale. "I am so sorry, Mr. Hargreave," the doctor whispered, his voice trembling. "We've done everything. Time of death, 8:47 p.m. Daniel Hargreave, a man who possessed billions of dollars, a man who could move mountains with a phone call, collapsed to his knees. His 8-month-old son, Noah, lay still on the bed, his skin turning a terrifying shade of gray. The nurses began to disconnect the tubes. It was over. The grief in the room was so thick you could choke on it. But then, the door creaked open. A boy, no older than 14, stepped in. He was dripping wet, smelling of rain and the alleyway, wearing clothes that were little more than rags. Security lunged to grab him, but the boy screamed, "Stop! He isn't dead!" Before anyone could react, the homeless boy rushed past the billionaire, grabbed the lifeless baby, and ran toward the sink. What happened in the next 30 seconds would not only defy medical science, but would change the fate of everyone in that room forever. Welcome to Kindness Valley. We share stories that touch the soul and remind us that light can be found in the darkest places. If you believe in miracles, please take a moment right now to like this video. Leave a comment below saying, "I believe," share this with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring more hope to the world. To understand how a boy with nothing saved a boy who had everything, we have to go back to before the scream of the monitor. We have to go back to the rain. The boy's name was Eli. He was 14 years old, but his eyes looked ancient, carrying the weight of a lifetime of sorrow. He was thin, painfully thin, with ribs that pressed against his skin like the cage of a trapped bird. He hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. He usually slept behind the large metal dumpsters at the back of the hospital because the exhaust fans blew out warm air. But tonight, the storm was violent. The rain hammered against the city like bullets, washing away the grime but freezing the soul. Eli had sought shelter near the automatic doors of the hospital lobby. He wasn't begging. He never begged. And he had too much pride left from the life he used to have before the fire took his parents, before the system failed him, before he became invisible. He just stood there, shivering, watching people rush in and out. He watched them holding flowers, holding coffees, holding each other. He felt like a ghost haunting the land of the living, cold, hungry, and utterly alone. When the storm grew worse, the wind whipped the rain sideways, soaking Eli to the bone. Seeking just a moment of warmth, he slipped through the sliding doors when the security guard was distracted by an ambulance arrival. Eli didn't mean to go upstairs. He just wanted to stand in the hallway. But the elevators opened, and a rush of nurses pushed him backward. Confused and trying to stay hidden, he ended up on the 4th floor. The pediatric ICU, and the air up here was different. It didn't smell like rain. It smelled of antiseptic and fear. Eli walked softly, his wet sneakers squeaking on the pristine floor. That was when he heard the sobbing. It was a guttural, broken sound coming from room 402. Drawn by a curiosity he couldn't control, Eli peeked inside. He saw the scene that would haunt him forever. The billionaire on his knees, the doctors stepping back. The baby, Noah, looking like a broken porcelain doll. Eli should have left. He should have run before he was caught. But his eyes locked onto the baby. And because Eli had lived on the streets, because he had to survive by noticing the smallest details, A shift in the wind, a shadow in an alley. He saw what the highly trained doctors missed. The baby's pinky finger twitched. It wasn't a normal movement. It was a spasm. And then Eli saw the baby's throat ripple. It wasn't a breath. It was a blockage, a reaction. "He's not gone," Eli whispered. Inside the room, the nurse reached for the main power switch to the ventilator. "He's not gone!" Eli shouted, his voice cracking from disuse. The room froze. Daniel Hargreave looked up, his eyes red and wild. He saw a filthy street kid standing in the doorway of his dying son's room. "Get him out of here!" a doctor snapped. "Security!" "No!" Eli screamed. Adrenaline, sharp and electric, flooded his starving body. He didn't think about the consequences. He didn't think about jail. He just thought about the baby. He launched himself into the room. "Don't touch him!" Daniel roared, scrambling to his feet to protect his son's body. But Eli was faster. He dodged the lead doctor's arm. He reached the bed and, with surprising strength, scooped the lifeless infant into his dirty arms. "He's choking! It's a laryngospasm!" Eli yelled, terms he shouldn't know spilling out of his mouth. "The cold broke the seal." He didn't run for the door. He ran for the sink in the corner. "Stop him!" The security guards burst through the doors. Eli ignored them. He turned the faucet on full blast. The water was icy cold. He held the baby face up, tilting him slightly. "Please," Eli whispered, tears mixing with the rain on his face. "In the name of Jesus, breathe." He thrust the baby's face under the stream of cold water. "What are you doing?" the doctor screamed, lunging forward to tackle him. But then, gasp. It sounded like a seal barking. A wet, jagged, desperate intake of air. The room went silent. The guard stopped mid-stride. Daniel froze. The baby coughed. Water splattered. And then, another gasp. A chest that had been still suddenly heaved. The gray skin flushed pink. And then came the cry. A loud, wailing, beautiful cry of life. He's breathing," the nurse stammered, her hands covering her mouth. "Oh my God, he's breathing." The medical team descended. They ripped the baby from Eli's arms, rushing Noah back to the bed. "Vitals are returning. Heart rate is 140. Oxygen is climbing. Get the mask, now!" It was chaos, controlled chaos. But in the middle of it, Noah Hargreave was alive. Eli stood in the corner, shaking violently. The adrenaline was gone, leaving him dizzy and nauseous from hunger. He slid down the wall, leaving a streak of mud on the expensive paint. He pulled his knees to his chest, hiding his face. He waited for the handcuffs, and he waited to be thrown out. But instead, the room went quiet again. The baby was stable. The machines were beeping a steady, rhythmic song of life. Daniel Hargreave turned around. He looked at the doctors who had pronounced his son dead. Then he looked at the boy in the corner. Daniel walked over. He didn't care about his $1,000 suit. He knelt down in the puddle of water next to Eli. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking. Eli looked up, terrified. I'm Eli. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I just saw my little sister died like that. The cold water shocks the throat open. My dad told me once." "You saved him," Daniel wept, reaching out to touch Eli's dirty shoulder. "You gave him back to me." "I just didn't want him to be alone," Eli whispered. That night, the hospital bent every rule. Daniel Hargreave demanded it. Eli was given a private room next to the ICU. He was given a hot shower, clean scrubs to wear, and a meal that looked like a feast. Warm soup, bread, fruit. He ate slowly, savoring every bite. Terrified it was a dream. The doctors were baffled. They called it a miraculous, spontaneous resuscitation triggered by cold stimulus. They couldn't explain how a homeless boy recognized a rare medical condition that experts missed. But the scans showed Noah's brain was active. He was going to recover. The next morning, Daniel entered Eli's room. The billionaire looked different. The hardness in his eyes was gone, replaced by a profound softness. "Where are your parents, Eli?" he asked gently. "Gone," Eli said, staring at his hands. "Fire, 2 years ago. Then foster care, then the streets. It's better on the streets. Yet nobody pretends to care." Daniel's heart broke. He looked at this boy who had been ignored by thousands of people, walked past by the wealthy and the busy, treated like garbage. And yet, this boy held more humanity in his little finger than most people had in their entire bodies. "You aren't going back to the streets," Daniel said firmly. "I have to," Eli said. "I can't pay for this room." "I'm not talking about the hospital," Daniel said. "I'm talking about home." It wasn't a simple fairy tale ending. Trauma doesn't vanish overnight. Daniel took Eli home to his sprawling estate. He legally adopted him. But for the first few months, Eli struggled. He wouldn't sleep in the soft, king-sized bed. Daniel would find him sleeping on the floor in the closet, wrapped in a blanket. So Eli would hoard food, hiding apples and granola bars under his pillow, convinced that tomorrow the food would stop coming. He flinched at loud noises. He didn't trust the happiness. But Daniel was patient. He didn't force Eli to be normal. He just loved him. And Noah? Noah was the key. As Noah grew, he adored Eli. The doctors said Noah might have brain damage from the oxygen loss, that he might never walk or talk. Eli refused to believe it. Every day after school, because Daniel made sure Eli went to the best private school, Eli would sit on the floor with Noah. "Come on, Noah," Eli would whisper, holding the toddler's hands. "You breathed when you were dead. Walking is easy." And Noah listened. He walked. He talked. He laughed. And every time he looked at Eli, his eyes lit up with a recognition that went beyond brotherly love. And it was as if his soul remembered who pulled it back from the edge. Years passed. The story of the miracle baby became a legend in the city. But the media eventually moved on. However, the trauma of the streets never fully left Eli. When Eli was 17, a senior in high school, he was walking home when a sudden thunderstorm hit. The temperature dropped. The rain pounded the pavement. Eli froze. He was standing at a crosswalk, but suddenly, in his mind, he was back behind the dumpster. He could smell the rotting garbage. He could feel the gnawing hunger. The cars honking sounded like the alarms of the hospital. He couldn't breathe. A panic attack gripped his throat. He fell to his knees on the wet sidewalk, gasping, clawing at his chest. The world was spinning. "Eli!" A small voice cut through the rain. It was Noah, and now 7 years old. He had jumped out of the car that was waiting for them a few yards away. "Eli, look at me!" Noah shouted, dropping to his knees in the puddles. Eli shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I can't. I'm back there. I'm cold." Noah did something he had seen Eli do 1,000 times in his nightmares. Noah took Eli's hand and pressed it against his own chest. "Feel that?" Noah shouted over the rain. Boom, 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 boom. Eli focused on the heartbeat, the strong, steady rhythm. "You put that there," Noah said fiercely. "You saved me. Now let me save you. Breathe, Eli. Just breathe." The connection broke the spell. The reality of the heartbeat anchored Eli. He gasped, sucking in the air. He looked at his little brother, the boy he had snatched from death, now acting as his anchor. Eli pulled Noah into a hug, she sobbing into his little shoulder. "I got you," Noah whispered. That night, Eli made a choice. Daniel had offered him a position in the company. He could have been rich, powerful, a CEO. "I don't want the suit, Dad," Eli told Daniel at dinner. "What do you want?" Daniel asked. "I want to go back to the hospital," Eli said, "but not as a patient." It took years of study. Eli worked harder than anyone else. He went to medical school, fueled by a drive that no textbook could teach. Today, if you walk into the City General Hospital, specifically the trauma center, you might see him. He doesn't look like a typical doctor. He doesn't stay behind the desk. He is the head nurse of the pediatric trauma unit. He chose nursing because he wanted to be the one touching the patients, the one holding their hands, the one closest to the fight. There is a story the staff tells about him. They say that on stormy nights, when a child is brought in and the machines are screaming, when the doctors are shaking their heads and preparing to call the time of death, Eli steps in. He walks up to the bedside. He speaks to the children in a voice that is calm and commanding. He holds their hands. And sometimes, more often than science can explain, the monitors stabilize. The heart rates return. One evening, a young intern asked him, "Nurse Eli, how do you stay calm when everything is falling apart? How do you know when to keep fighting?" Eli smiled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photo of a rain-soaked baby. "Because," Eli said softly, "I know that sometimes the machines are wrong. I know that when the world says it's over, that's usually when the miracle is just waiting for someone to notice it." Noah Hargreave grew up to run his father's foundation. He dedicated his life to ending homelessness in their city. He built shelters that didn't look like prisons, but looked like homes. And on the entrance of every shelter, there is a plaque with a quote. It reads, "No one is invisible. Look closer, and you might see an angel in the rain." Daniel Hargreave is an old man now. He spends his days sitting in the park, watching his grandsons play, Eli's children. He often tells strangers the story. He tells them that he was the richest man in the world, but he was a pauper until a homeless boy taught him the value of a single breath. So, the next time you pass someone on the street, someone who looks cold, someone the world has forgotten, look closer. You never know who they might be. You never know what miracles they carry in their rough hands. Because in the end, we are all just walking each other home. Thank you for watching this story on Kindness Valley. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, comment "Miracles are real" down below, and share this with your family and friends. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a story that heals the heart. Until next time, be kind to one another.